Pep Guardiola has given us a little update on Erling Haaland's fitness with the Asia Cup and AFCON tournaments coming up. Who's going to them and when are they due back? With Salah and Son obviously off to those tournaments, who are their best replacements? And with Game Week 20 being the final time managers get to use their first wildcard draft, I've made the best draft for you. These are my thoughts going into Game Week 20. Ahead of the Everton fixture in Game Week 19, Pep Guardiola gave us, a small update on Erling Haaland's fitness. He said that he still hasn't trained, but he does expect him to be back in January. Now, how does that translate to FPL? Well, Man City, I'm just looking here, they've got 2 fixtures in January, just 2. They got Newcastle away in Game Week 21 and Burnley at home in Game Week 22. The fact that Haaland hadn't even been in a training session yet, and that was on the 27th of December, with their game on the 30th of December against Sheffield United. I mean, question marks really as to whether he's going to be available to that. If he hasn't trained yet, I'd really doubt that he's going to be back for Game Week 20. But I guess from an FPL perspective, I'd never ill wish an injury on any player, of course. But from an FPL perspective, it means that Haaland is going to be back when Salah and Son are off to AFCON. So it gives managers a slightly smaller headache in terms of players to have in their team, right? If Haaland was back for Sheffield United, it would mean either selling one of Salah or Son to accommodate for him. But, you still have to sell one of them to accommodate for him. But they're obviously off to their respective international tournaments, so it does make it a lot easier to squeeze him in. We still don't know when he's going to be back, but given that Pep Guardiola anticipates he's going to be back for January, I mean, we've already seen pictures of him kicking a ball and being back on a sort of training pitch. I don't think he's been in full training for Man City, but given the fact he's on grass and playing with the football, I would expect his return to come in January as well. And that looks like Game Week 21 in Game Week 22. And yeah, that's the update we have on Erling Haaland. Next up then, again, I just want to re-emphasise, I've spoken about this in quite a few of my previous videos, but it's really important to be cognizant of the AFCON and Asia Cup. Which players are going to go? When are they leaving and when are they coming back? So the AFCON and Asia Cup, they operate on pretty similar timelines, certainly in terms of FPL as well. So all the players that are going to be playing in those tournaments will leave for Game Week 21. So Salah and Son, all the other players, likes of Onana and Mbeumo, obviously injured, Doucouré, Kudus, Idingra, Awoniyi, Wissa, Foster, Jackson for AFCON. Key players for the Asia Cup, you've obviously got Tomiyasu, Son, Mitoma, and Hwang, although quite a lot of these players actually managed to pick up injuries in Game Week 19. So, yeah, question marks on whether they'll go or not. But all these players are going to leave in Game Week 21, and then it depends on, of course, how far their respective nations get into the tournament, depending on, when they get back. So, if you look at both tournaments run on the same sort of timeline, so if their team gets knocked out in the group stages, they're either going to be back for Game Week 22, Game Week 23, and if they win the tournament, they'll probably be back Game Week 25, Game Week 26 sort of timeline. So I can't predict, obviously, which teams are going to get where. I'd say the 2 key players that are off, Salah and Son, I'd say South Korea, Son's nation, are probably, in my opinion, the favourites to win the Asia Cup. So we're probably going to be without Son, I'd say, at least until Game Week 23. I think they'll probably make it to the quarterfinal, semi-final stage. So, I mean, realistically, that's Game Week 24, 25, he'll be back. So, we could be missing Son for 4 or 5 weeks. Salah and Egypt, however, I mean, I don't know. I don't get the feeling that Egypt are one of the strongest teams in Africa. So, yeah, question marks on quite how far they'll get in the tournament. I would suggest they're going to get knocked out in the group stages or the round of 16. So that means potentially returning Game Week 23, Game Week 24. So realistically, we're going to be without Salah for a couple of weeks. With Salah, I'd probably say I'd be hesitant to spend all of the money I'd get from selling him. I'd try, if possible, to have a plan to get him back, particularly the fact that, I think a Salah and Haaland double up at least is going to be really, really effective. So just one thing to think about there, if you sell Salah, you probably want to leave enough cash in the bank to get him back because he's probably not going to be away for that long. Son, however, to be honest, by the time he gets back, you might want to be thinking about playing your second wild card anyway. It'd be 6 or 7 game weeks time he could be out for. But yeah, Salah, he's probably going to be back a bit sooner. So realistically, need to plan for him to come back in sooner. Now, I wondered if you could do me a favour. If you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure to leave a like rating, subscribe to the channel as well, set the notification bell so you can see when I upload next. If you're really enjoying the video, please consider joining as a channel member. You'll get early access to all of my videos, and when I deadline stream, I'll give you priority when I rate people's teams in Draft Hound. You can also, if you want to support the channel in a different way, check out my shop down below. You can buy yourself a golden goal sticker or a mug. All right, back to the video. Now, obviously, with Salah and Son being, off to the African Cup of Nations and the Asia Cup, you're gonna want to look at some kind of replacements for them. What I've got here is I've lined up, according to Draft Hound, the top midfielders for the next 3 game weeks. Phil Foden is top of the list. He's better than Saka, better than Odegaard. Well, you can see the rest of the players there, right? He's got 21 expected points over the next 3 game weeks. That's obviously propped up by the fact that he plays Sheffield United at home in game week 20. However, the fixture run that Man City are about to embark on is really, really good. So it's an interesting one to keep tabs on. Personally, my affiliation with Phil Foden in FPL has not been great. Whenever I think I've bought him, he's been benched the next game. And with the quick turnaround, certainly between game week 19 and 20, a rest could well come against Sheffield United. And to be honest, I would expect him by the time you sell Salah and Son for game week 21, I would expect him to play the Newcastle away fixture just because it's a really tough one and, Man City want to be full strength for that one. So he could well be a good replacement. I think if you don't currently own Bukayo Saka, he is the #1 replacement for both Salah and Son, in my opinion. Now, absolutely nailed for Arsenal on penalties. Well, most of penalties. He is the designated penalty taker. Sometimes he gives them away, and he just is. He's just the best Arsenal player, in my opinion. Closely followed by Martin Odegaard. He's also nailed, plays 90 minutes, and, when Saka doesn't want to take the penalty, Odegaard's usually the one who lines up and takes it. And to be honest, their expected points are really close. Bernardo Silva has been in a really good run of form recently in terms of attacking returns as well. Obviously, a goal and an assist against Everton. And I'm pretty sure he's one of the top FPL goal-scoring midfielders over the last sort of 5 or 6 game weeks. He has consistently picked up returns for Man City, and at 6.4 million, 3.4% ownership, he's a nice differential if you're really looking to chase. Jared Bowen, I absolutely love. Apart from not taking penalties, he ticks all the boxes as a good FPL asset. He's absolutely clinical in front of goal, and he's nailed to play pretty much every game for 90 minutes. Luis Diaz is up there as well. Question marks as to whether he's going to play every game, but I do like him as a bit of a differential. Cole Palmer, nailed, 90 minutes, penalties, 5.6 million. In fact, I'd say Cole Palmer is playing at the level of an 8 to 9 million midfielder in the game at the moment. So the fact that he's 5.6 million, you kind of think of him as a different category of midfielder. But to be honest, I'd say he's right up there with the likes of Bowen and Saka in terms of points potential. Kulusevski's in there as well. I quite like him as a bit of a differential, but I don't think he gets quite the level of attacking returns you want from an FPL asset. The Tottenham midfielder doesn't actually appear on this list, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it because he hasn't played in game week 19 at the time of recording this video, but I really like Richarlison as well. I think he's going to play as number 9 for Tottenham, particularly when Son is gone, and he might even take the penalties for them as well. And we all know how good Tottenham have been going forward. They're obviously going to be without both Maddison and Son when Son goes to the Asia Cup. They're 2 best attacking players. Maddison probably due back during Son's time in the Asia Cup, so that could improve Richarlison's points potential. But I think the fact that Richarlison's just going to be nailed on, probably take the penalties off Son when he goes to the Asia Cup, I think he's a good option to consider as well. But yeah, to summarise, those are my favourite midfield picks. All right, with game week 20 being the final opportunity managers have to play their wildcard, I thought I'd make a wildcard draft to show you. I'm going to talk through it really quickly because I think most of the players sort of pick themselves, to be honest. David Raya in goal. I think Arsenal as a defence have the strongest clean sheet odds of any team for the next 6 to 7 game weeks. I really like the attacking upside that Porro and Trent bring. They can basically get returns reasonably reliably through 3 means, being that clean sheets, goals and assists. I think they can feasibly score, assist and clean sheet in any game the way they go forwards. Gabriel, I've gone for him over Saliba because I'm a little bit concerned about budget available. I'll get onto that in a second. But if you have enough to buy Erling Haaland and Saliba and get them in the same team, go for Saliba because he's worth the extra on Gabriel. I've just been a bit conservative with budget when building this team, just trying to accommodate for everyone. So I picked Gabriel for that reason. Saka, Palmer, Bowen and Foden, I think, are 4 of the best midfielders when Salah and Son are not in the game. Alvarez, Solanke and Watkins up front. Alvarez is basically a placeholder for Haaland whenever he gets back fit, and with the expected points of the rest of the team, he's probably the best captain for Game Week 20 as well. And with Salah playing Newcastle, you know, you don't know what you're going to get with Newcastle. They've been in poor form recently, but they do tend to show up in the big games, and he might have a tough time against that defence. And I just think Sheffield United at home for Man City is a plum fixture. That second half against Everton, they really impressed me, and they looked like that Man City just title challenging team in the second half of the season. So I think we could see that kind of performance from them against Sheffield United, and he's proven that he takes the pens off Haaland when Haaland isn't in the team. So yeah, I think he's probably the best captain for this team. Solanke and Watkins, my other two forwards, literally the two other best forwards in the game at the moment, in my opinion. Dubravka rotates nicely with Raya. Raya plays Liverpool in game week 23-24 time, and that means you can easily rotate the two players when Raya plays Liverpool. Branthwaite, Taylor, I think are the two best sort of cheap bargain basement defenders. In Garnacho, I think is a really nice placeholder to allow you to swap between Archer and Semenyo if you want to go 2 up top or 3 up top. If that makes sense, you know, going 3-5-2 means you have to have a 4.5 million forward, and going 3-4-3 probably means you need to have a cheap midfielder. And I think of all the sub 5 million midfielders, Garnacho is the best. You know, he's nailed for Man United, probably their best player at the moment, to be honest. And yeah, you're not going to be worried about taking up a Man United spot at the moment, right? In previous seasons, you might have been, but certainly not this year. And yeah, that's the wildcard draft. There's currently in and around 10 million in the bank at the moment. I could spend that extra money, but I wasn't too sure how to. Maybe going Foden to Odegaard if you want to be a bit safer. You know, Odegaard's pretty nailed for Arsenal. Foden obviously prone to a bit of rotation. But I do think he has better upside than Odegaard. So that's one way you might want to do it. Likewise, you could probably do Foden to Richarlison if you fancy that as well. I think both Richarlison and Odegaard are pretty reasonable alternatives to Foden. Bowen, Palmer and Saka, I wouldn't want to be taking those guys out. I think they're absolutely nailed on the team. But just with Foden's, you know, slight risk of not starting some games, he could be the one to go. But with 10 million in the bank, you got a lot of freedom to change him around. Just make sure you leave enough cash in the bank to go Alvarez to Haaland. All right, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. I tried to go through what I thought were the main thoughts and talking points for Game Week 20 there. If I missed anything out, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll try to respond to you with some advice or my thoughts. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating, subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there, and I will catch you in my next video.